basic contention is that religion is stupid and that people who believe in religion are stupid. For a lot of people, it's a highly offensive view. I'm not, in any sense, getting involved in a discussion about whether or not it's a good view or not. But good research is done by people who doubt everything. There are lots of other skills we might have, like listening and things, but at the end of the day, a level of cynicism, if you like, is paramount to doing good research, because there are so many reasons for research not to be believed, and the one thing you need to have is at the end of the day that no one's able to ask the killer question, which goes, did you take into account the following? Unless the person doing the research themselves is pretty cynical, there's a huge chance something quite important gets left out. If you want to do your field work yourself, it used to be we just had the omnibus that we could do, where we'd put a couple of questions on a survey and get some help from a research company. Now we can write a questionnaire. Any client can do this, send it off to one of the various panel companies, ORU, Research Now. I believe Peter's company, you've got the same kind of service, don't you? Where you write a questionnaire and somebody sends you back a data file, and they can send it back rather quickly. It can all happen in about a week. That saves a fortune. If you were going to do an online study, if you instead write the questionnaire yourself and do the analysis yourself, your costs are really going to be in the order of 10 to 20% if you go to a research company. But it won't be as good, of course, but cheaper. Setting up your own panel, Peter talked about a whole lot of ways of talking to customers. There's actually one brand which really sticks out in this space, which is a company called Vision Critical, which many of the customers who don't use my company as much don't do it because they've got their own online hosted community with Vision Critical. Or you can do everything yourself. You can spend 25 grand a year buying your actual top of the grade commercial software, or you can go to somewhere like SurveyMonkey, where it pay peanuts to do reasonable market research. There's lots of ways you can do it. If you need to do analysis and reporting, there's only one product you'd need to use. That's my product, just in case there's any confusion. But coming back to the more serious game, if you've got a limited amount of money, the real focus needs to be on trying to create value. And I mean, this is a really obvious message, but it's one which I think gets lost quite a lot. I'm going to show some pretty basic frameworks coming up. But if you look around, if you look at the global financial crisis and the opportunities that have been presented, there's kind of three broad ones that I keep reading out. One is the ability to sack employees. You can debate the ethics to the end of the world, but it's clearly a great way of improving the bottom line. It was a great opportunity for big companies. You can sack customers, same idea. Everyone's got customers who cost more to service than they bring in, get rid of them. But the last big thing that there's been a lot of talk about is this idea of the new mindset. Consumers are fearful, they're introspective, and I love this word, they're bunkering. I don't quite know what it means, but I love it. They're localising. I'm not sure this is really a good focus for marketing. So that with marketing, there's always this basic risk I think we run, which is there's a fine line between when we're creating value and when we're trying to trick people. And for me, a lot of the so-called recession opportunities, I think are kind of gained, like the shells game. You know, I've got the money here, I'm going to move it around, I'll trick you. I think they're called a quant jock, doesn't worry me at all. I'm comfortable being a market researcher, no shame in that either. Just to demonstrate my quantitative focus, if anybody's got ice, ice baby going through your heads at the moment, studies have found that if you do a bit of mental arithmetic, the song will leave your head. So I'll just give you a couple of minutes to practice on that. Studies also find that market research is, of course, a wonderful way to grow a business, but the focus that I'm talking about today is slightly different, which is what to do if you're in a situation where you actually have less money to spend on market research. How about trying to get more bang for the buck, if you like? I should say my voice is almost gone, so if I'm not modulating it correctly and you can't hear me at the back, just yell or something and I'll try a bit harder. Now, I keep reading and hearing that when times are tough, and I think times are moderately tough, although we're apparently not in a recession, we need to be having a lot of warmth and cuddles and things like that, but we also are still looking for a lot of money, and that kind of plays into recession, or not technical recession marketing in two ways. One is that we have to be conscious that consumers might be more careful with their money, and secondly, we have to work harder to get that money off them. The example of the kind of the ideal product for these times is something like the energy-saving light bulb. It's new, it's different, it's law that you have to buy them, but they save the consumer money over time. and they make the world a better place. It's a great example of something where you can actually spend less and get more. And this, oh, my bills are gone. This was going to build enough. Anyway, now, in the desire to get more for less, a rather unusual idea went through some of the boardrooms of the country. And it went like this. We have essential suppliers and we have non-essential suppliers. Essential suppliers give you things like power. Non-essential suppliers give you things like market research. One way you can save a lot of money, according to the boards, was go to all your non-essential suppliers and say, you have 20% less money for this project. You may not drop the quality, you may not drop the quantity, you just have to do it for 20% less. And this was a conversation that amazingly took place quite regularly. It's one of my good friends who's in charge of one of the larger research budgets in the country was telling me how successful it had been and how many of the research suppliers had come to the party and cut 20% and how some of them hadn't come to the party and had been cut. So it was a kind of a brutal set of conversations that took place. The problem with it is it's entirely the wrong way to look at research, and it's entirely the wrong way to try and save money. If you look at any traditional market research project, you can break it up into various little bits, and they're kind of, as you can tell if you're quantitatively focused, each of these segments is exactly the same size, which tells us it's made up data, but hopefully not too far off the mark. If you go to a research company and you say, just do it cheaper, please, the research company is going to have to figure out where to save money. Now, client management, which is dealing with clients, everything to do with working out what they want, scheduling things. If a company tells you they want you to do everything a lot cheaper, you know they're a hard work client, and consequently you're not going to save anything there. Research design, if you've got limited budget, there's no money to be saved in research design because the less money you've got, the more you have to work about how to spend it well, so nothing gets saved. Project management, no real opportunity to save money in project management because project management is about checking everything gets done on time. If you've got less money, you still have to check. Interviewing and field work, historically a great way to save money on a research project. These days not so great because particularly with online studies, typically 10 to 20% of the project cost will actually be field work. So if you say to a research company you need to save money and they're going to come back often and say cut the field work, there's actually not really much money to be cut there. Data analysis, charting and reporting, no real opportunity to save money. The only place you can easily save money as a research company is in thinking about what the research actually means. That's the one bit of the whole process where the client has no transparency about the process and you actually can easily do. And for this reason, it's actually entirely the wrong way to go about trying to be more productive is to say to researchers, do it cheaper, because all that happens is we do less thinking, and that's the one thing that we're hopefully pretty good at. And the risk that we run when we try and cut budgets is we turn the lovely flower into the plastic flower. It looks like what we're trying to achieve, but is something which creates little love. I'm going to talk about 4 kind of ways of expanding productivity of market research, and I'm very much talking about the problem of you have less money and you want to get more for it. Please don't view this as me saying that you should cut your market research expenditures because we're lovely people and we like money, and I don't think there's a lot of money to be saved there, but nevertheless. Last year I had a great assignment of reviewing 40 different tracking studies from a telecommunications company. These were all studies which were regularly talking to customers about different aspects of the business, trying to find out what it was that the customer thought of that bit of the business and how it was performing over time. And when you're trying to cut budget, we needed to cut that expenditure by about $1.5 million, which is a fairly large amount of money to be trying to find. You say to yourself, well, all these studies, all we've got to do is get the users of the research to tell us what decisions they've helped them with. You know, and the studies which are making a lot of good decisions